The movie opens with a woman named Samantha Barclay, a writer, drinking at a pub with her date and watching a horse show with excitement. She watches all the equestrian tricks and claps enthusiastically. Upon seeing her excitement, her date, Paul, asks her about the show, and Samantha takes this cue to go on and on about different hurdles and their difficulty level. As expected, he gets incredibly bored and tries to steer the conversation. The two then chat about their respective jobs, and that's when Samantha reveals that she works for Compass magazine. As their conversation goes on, Paul realizes that Samantha is a total nerd who has extremely niche interests. As a result, the two start to get bored of each other. Finally, after a dreadful date, Paul and Samantha part ways. Samantha goes back to her apartment where her mom calls her and urges her to come back home since she'd been away for quite a long time. Samantha nods quietly and tries to change the conversation. However, that's when her mom reveals that they're having the annual Northeastern Horse Riding Championship in their town this year. Since Samantha herself used to be a professional rider, she is ecstatic to hear this news. She even comes to learn that her father will also be participating in the championship. Eventually, Samantha bids her mom goodnight and proceeds to head to bed. The very next morning, Samantha rushes to her office only to find out that her recent article has been rejected by the magazine. With a very solemn face, her boss, Amanda, tells her that her stories are too difficult for the audience to connect with. Moreover, since all of Samantha's articles are about niche topics, Amanda informs her that they're all too hard to grasp. Samantha tries to explain her side, but sadly, her boss doesn't listen to her. Instead, the boss asks her to write an article that only she herself can write. Samantha is incredibly confused by this, but agrees nonetheless. Later that day, Samantha walks around the city whilst trying to think of a topic that best describes her. At one point, she runs into Shadow, a white horse that seems to be particularly attached to her. Samantha hugs Shadow tightly and then chats with the coachman, Chauncey. Whilst talking, Chauncey gives her a brilliant idea. Since she has always been passionate about horses, Samantha decided to write an article all about them. She immediately calls her mom, Bonnie, and informs her that she's coming back home to cover the upcoming Northeastern Championships. Bonnie is ecstatic to hear this and informs her entire family of the amazing news. That's when Samantha's sister Alex gasps and asks her parents if they've told her about her ex-husband Luke being at the championship as well. In response, Bonnie just shrugs and asserts that Samantha will know about it when she arrives. Back in New York, Samantha informs Amanda about her idea and requests permission to return to her hometown. Amanda grants the permission, but then asserts that she has really high expectations for the article. Samantha understands the situation and then proceeds to pack all her stuff. Moments later, she drives back to her hometown and meets with a bunch of her college friends. She even goes to a bakery belonging to her friend Ashley and greets her excitedly. However, her excitement soon fades when she sees a photo of Luke hanging on the walls of the bakery. She tries to ask Ashley about it, but she simply brushes it off. Feeling confused, Samantha walks out of the bakery and heads straight towards her home. Once there, Samantha hugs her mom tightly and then goes up to her room. Feeling nostalgic, she walks around happily and reminisces about all her childhood moments. After a while of relaxing, Samantha goes to their family farm to meet with all the horses. Whilst petting them, she bumps into Matthew, the new stableman. Matthew instantly strikes up a conversation with her and asks her why she quit riding. But before she can answer, her dad, Preston, arrives at the scene and changes the topic. Shortly after, Samantha heads towards the barn to meet with the new horse, Rascal. But much to her dismay, she ends up bumping into Luke instead. Confused, she asks him what he's doing there. In response, Luke tells her that he's actually training Preston for the championship. As expected, a very furious Samantha walks away to confront Bonnie. However, Luke stops her just then and begs her to say something since they're meeting each other after a very long time. Samantha just huffs and asserts that she can't even process the entire situation right now. Soon after, Bonnie and Alex join her as well. In order to calm Samantha down, Bonnie apologizes and explains that she is just waiting for the right moment. When Preston sees the entire fiasco, he tries to run away, but Samantha spots him and urges him to face her. Enraged, Samantha asks her parents to justify themselves. In response, Preston tells her that since she's not around, he wanted a trainer who understood their horses well, and that person turned out to be Luke. Immediately after, Bonnie explains that she just didn't know how to disclose such serious information. Both Preston and her emphasize that they desperately need him for the championship. This makes Samantha realize just how important and crucial Luke's presence is. Despite feeling uncomfortable, she agrees to tolerate him just for the sake of her parents and the upcoming championship. That evening, Samantha gets ready for the family dinner and heads downstairs. However, she finds Luke there as well. Needless to say, she's about to explode with anger but somehow controls herself and sits down quietly. But even then, the two start bickering and making sarcastic remarks at each other. As a result, the atmosphere becomes extremely awkward. Soon enough, the remarks turn into vile accusations being thrown at one another. Bonnie and Alex try their best to take control of the situation and end the dinner as fast as they can. At night, while Samantha is thinking of ways to start her article, a very concerned Alex walks into her room and asks if she's okay. Samantha asserts that she is, and forgives her baby sister for everything that just happened. Samantha then asks Alex if Luke joins them for dinner all the time. That's when Alex replies that he does since he's staying at their carriage house. Samantha loses her mind upon hearing this and immediately runs towards the carriage house. There, she confronts Luke and asks him as to why he's living with her family. Luke simply smiles and replies that it was actually Preston who wanted him to stay with them. Now sensing his ex-wife's discomfort, Luke decides to move out. However, Samantha stops him and explains that she wants him to stay and figure out what went wrong. Luke doesn't know how to reply, so he just hands her a drink and starts talking about their old memories. Eventually, the two try to come up with a way to stay cordial until the championship. With no other way out, they decide to avoid each other as much as possible. The next morning, Preston begins his training with Luke. The two appear to be fully focused on the hurdles and challenges that might come along. Samantha joins them just then and quietly watches her father training. Unsure of the situation, she asks Luke if Preston really has a shot at the championship. Luke replies, saying Preston does since he's extremely graceful and aware. Whilst the two are talking, Preston approaches them and proceeds to get off of his horse. At that moment, Samantha asks her dad if he's really sure about participating. Preston just scoffs at her and replies that he actually plans on winning the whole thing. A while later, multiple moving vehicles arrive at Samantha's house to set up all the furniture for the championship. Since it's her family hosting it, the event will take place at their farm. Bonnie handles everything related to the organization of the event. Meanwhile, Alex and Matthew flirt with each other and get closer than ever before. At night, Samantha gets back to writing her article. However, she gets stuck after a sentence. She thinks for a long while, but can't come up with anything. Feeling defeated, she and Alex go to a nearby pub to get some drinks. There, the two chat about their lives and their potential future. Alex talks about how Preston doesn't want her to do anything except handle their family business. She complains that their parents still babysit her, which really annoys her. Samantha just smiles at that and looks around the bar only to find Matthew playing darts. Startled, she asks Alex about him. That's when Alex reveals that she really likes him and that he has even asked her out. Just as the two are talking, Luke enters the pub with none other than Ashley, Samantha's friend. When Ashley sees Alex and Samantha staring at her, she runs behind Luke and tries to hide. Samantha quickly understands the entire situation and her face gets really bitter. She tries to ignore the situation since she's not married to him anymore. In order to get her off of Luke, she heads towards the bar to get some more drinks. However, Luke appears right beside her and things get really awkward once again. Samantha tries to be supportive and wishes Luke all the best for his future with Ashley. But Ashley quickly shuts her down, stating that there's nothing going on between them. Suddenly, slow music starts playing at the pub. Samantha watches all the couples swaying around to the music and starts to get emotional. When Luke notices this, he apologizes to her once again for everything that went down between them and quickly walks away with his drink. The following morning, Samantha gets back to her article and brainstorms for quite a long while, but sadly, nothing comes to mind. Now furious, she heads to the kitchen where Luke appears to be making coffee for Alex and Bonnie. She greets all three of them and starts making coffee for herself as well. Just then, Preston walks into the kitchen, and soon, all five of them joke around and have a great time. However, midway through the conversation, Preston taunts Samantha for something that happened in the past. It's evident that the two have a very strained relationship, since Preston refuses to talk to Samantha for more than 3 seconds. Now incredibly hurt, Samantha walks away and tries to hide her pain. Luke joins her just then and tries to console her, saying that Preston is just a hard-headed person. Luke then quickly steers the topic to lighten the atmosphere. He asks her about her article, to which Samantha just sighs and explains that she hasn't been able to come up with something that will garner attention. She then asserts that she wants to relive some of her past memories in order to create a good article. Hearing this, Luke gives Samantha an incredible idea. Both of them head towards the horse stable and start bathing the horses there. Whilst doing so, the two talk about their mutual love for horses. They even spray water at each other and have a lot of fun. Later that day, Luke takes Samantha to the farm and urges her to ride with him. As expected, Samantha instantly refuses, but Luke practically begs her to join him. After a while of pestering, Samantha finally agrees, and so, the two get on their respective horses. Since she hasn't done horse riding for quite a while now, Luke keeps a close eye on Samantha and rides slowly so as to get her used to it. However, Samantha simply laughs at Luke and rides away as fast as possible. Luke follows her closely, and thus, the two ride around with excitement. When Preston and Bonnie see this, they are overwhelmed by emotions. They smile happily and watch as Samantha and Luke start to let go of their past and move towards a better future. After a while of riding, Luke tells Samantha that he was shocked to hear the news of her quitting horse riding. With a solemn face, he asks her the reason for it, and that's when Samantha reveals that when she was competing at an upstate competition, she fell down while riding and was incredibly embarrassed in front of a lot of other equestrians. She further explains that since their marriage had just fallen apart a month ago, she was heartbroken and wasn't able to concentrate on the game at all. To make matters worse, Preston had insulted Samantha to no extent. All of this simply became too much for her, so she let go of horse riding for good. Upon hearing all this, Luke quietly nods his head and sympathizes with her. Moments later, Luke apologizes to Samantha and asks if they can start over. Samantha readily agrees and decides to give him another chance. Samantha apologizes to Luke as well for being way too harsh during their marriage. Both of them feel that they were too young and pressured, which ultimately didn't let them properly focus on their marriage. But since things are better now, they decide to see where this new relationship leads. The two then kiss passionately and fall in love all over again. Shortly after, Samantha and Luke head back home to find out that Preston has severely injured himself. As expected, the two rush inside the house and see Preston with his arm plastered. The doctor there tends to him for quite a while before proceeding to leave. However, Samantha stops him just then and asks if Preston will still be able to participate in the competition. The doctor, who was completely unaware of this, informs her that her father must stay away from horses until his arm gets better. As soon as the doctor leaves, Preston tries to go back to training, but thankfully, Samantha stops him. Now annoyed, she asks him why he's doing all this when he already has a room full of trophies. In response, Preston just sighs and explains that maintaining the property as well as the horses is an incredibly big responsibility. It was also a massive financial burden, so he and Bonnie had decided to sell the place. And in order to bring some value to the farm, he wanted to win the championship. Samantha is shocked to hear all this and doesn't know how to respond, so she just watches him walk away quietly. That very night, Samantha and Luke carefully watch as Preston continues training for the championship. It's evident that he's struggling to balance himself, but refuses to give up. The next morning, Preston tries again, but ends up failing miserably. Luke tries to help him and asks him to just relax. Sadly, nothing works, which further agitates Preston. With a frustrated sigh, he asserts that his family has to have the first prize in the competition so that his property is sold at a good price. When Samantha sees her dad's dilemma, she has no choice but to step in. Now determined, she assures Preston that she will win the championship and immediately starts training. Before riding, Luke gives her all the tips and tricks that she'll need to get past any hurdles that might come her way. Finally, Samantha takes a deep breath and starts riding along the course. Despite getting multiple warnings to not do anything extreme, Samantha tries to make an incredibly high jump. As expected, she falls down with quite an impact. Bonnie arrives at the farm just then and immediately rushes towards her. Luke runs towards her as well and helps her up. He makes sure that she's okay and then asks her to start slow. Samantha retorts by saying that the championships are less than a week away, so she'll need to train as much as she can. With no other choice, she asks Luke to train her, and he readily agrees. A couple hours later, Samantha calls her boss and informs her that she's competing in the championship. Amanda is initially shocked to hear this, however she gets excited pretty quickly and wishes Samantha all the best. Soon after, she and Luke start training again. That night, Samantha's brain fog finally clears up, which allows her to start writing her article once again. Instead of making it professional, Samantha starts off with different anecdotes and her own writing experience. With the championships just a couple of days away now, Preston, Bonnie, and Alex all start to decorate the entire place for their guests. In the meantime, Samantha remains focused and spends almost all her time training. She also continues writing her article every day after practice. One day, Ashley randomly shows up at Samantha's house and hands her a box full of bakery goods. With an awkward smile, she explains that it was Bonnie who ordered them. Unable to pretend any longer, Ashley apologizes to Samantha for not telling her the entire truth. She explains that despite having been on a couple of dates with Luke, nothing serious ever happened. Ashley then reveals that Luke always talks about her and is clearly still in love with her. Samantha is shocked to hear this but thanks Ashley for being so honest with her. She then requests Ashley to become a photographer for the championship. Ashley is elated by the offer and instantly agrees. Soon enough, the day of the championship arrives and myriads of people arrive at Samantha's property to attend the event. They all greet each other happily and wait for the competition to commence. Samantha goes around greeting the guests cheerily, and that's when she sees Amanda right across from her. Now excited, she asks Amanda as to what she's doing there. In response, Amanda simply laughs, claiming that she loves equestrian competitions, so she just couldn't resist. After a short conversation, Amanda wishes Samantha all the best and urges her to deliver a great article in the end. A while later, Bonnie and Preston welcome all the guests at their stable and inform them that the main event will take place tomorrow. Till then, they urge everybody to just enjoy themselves. That night, a very nervous Samantha takes a careful look at the course and thinks of ways to complete each hurdle. Luke approaches her just then and asks her how she's feeling. Samantha replies, saying that she never thought of getting back in the course, so she's having mixed feelings about riding. Thankfully, Luke tells her that he's there for her and encourages her to just do her best. Samantha nods at that and then, out of the blue, asks him if he's still in love with her. Luke replies that he is and asks the same question to her. Samantha tells him that she loves him too, but she also doesn't want to make the same mistakes. That's when Luke urges her to just stop thinking for a second and embrace her true feelings. Then, without thinking, he grabs her tightly and kisses her. Samantha reciprocates the kiss and hugs him right back. The next morning, the entire course is laid out, and all the equestrians get ready to compete. Several media companies arrive at the scene to cover the championship. At the stable, Samantha takes a deep breath and tries her best to focus on the competition ahead. She then heads towards the course confidently. Luke helps her get on the horse and wishes her all the best. Moving forward, the entire audience eagerly watches as each and every participant gets ready for the event to start. Soon, the judges arrive at the competition as well. For the first round, each rider will have 55 seconds to demonstrate their talents, and only the riders with the highest scores will be eligible for the next round. One by one, each participant jumps over the hurdles and showcases their skills. Finally, it's Samantha's turn. With a deep breath, she and her horse, Rascal, enter the arena and start jumping over the different hurdles effortlessly. Despite a couple of faults, Samantha and Rascal manage to complete the course just in time. After round one, a short break is declared and everyone disperses to freshen up. Samantha hands Rascal to Matthew and tries to calm herself down. Just then, Preston shows up. Samantha expects him to yell at her for making such stupid mistakes, but instead, he praises her for doing so good, especially since she had quit riding almost 3 years ago. He then quickly notices his daughter's anxiety, so he asks her to follow him. Soon, the two reach the living room. There, Preston shows Samantha a box full of article cutouts. She quickly realizes that the articles are all about her winning various equestrian competitions. Not just that, he had also collected all the articles that she had ever written. Samantha is incredibly touched by this and thanks Preston for it all. Eventually, Preston tells his daughter that he's incredibly proud of her and explains that the only reason he ever became distant from her was because she had given up riding after one small incident. Overwhelmed by emotions, Samantha quickly wipes her tears and hugs Preston tightly. After embracing for quite some time, Preston asks Samantha to give her best shot at the championship. He asks her to just forget about the competition and simply focus on her love for the sport. Samantha feels a lot better and more confident upon hearing this. She then quickly gathers herself and heads out into the arena for round two. After a deep breath, Samantha enters the course and starts showcasing her skills. In order to secure the first position, Samantha would need to display a completely clean ride with no faults at all. Keeping this in mind, she and Rascal work in sync to jump past all the hurdles effortlessly. As expected, the two of them completed the entire ride without a single error, landing them in first position. Luke, Alex, Amanda, Preston, and Bonnie all cheer loudly and immediately start celebrating the victory. Soon after, Samantha gets handed the trophy, and her entire family poses for a picture. At night, Preston and Bonnie host an after-party to celebrate the end of the championship, as well as Samantha's victory. There, Ashley shows Amanda all the pictures that she's snapped so far. Amanda is thoroughly impressed by the photos, and so, she immediately hands Ashley her business card. In the meantime, Alex, who has been crushing over Matthew, finally approaches him to ask him out. However, that's when she finds out that he actually has a boyfriend. She tries her hardest to keep a straight face, and then runs as far away from him as she can. Just when she's about to give up on the idea of love, a very handsome young man approaches her and starts talking to her. Alex immediately starts flirting with him and even asks him out to dance. On the other hand, Samantha and Luke finally decide to become a couple again. Just as the two are discussing their future, Preston and Bonnie approach them with wonderful news. With a very excited face, Preston reveals that he has decided not to sell the property. Furthermore, he explains that he has given Alex the title of general manager for the stables. That way, he wouldn't have to stress about the maintenance of the property. Samantha is ecstatic to hear this, so she immediately congratulates her baby sister. Preston then asserts that looking after such a huge property is definitely not a one-person job. Because of this, he decided to offer Luke a permanent job as a trainer and manager at the stable. Upon hearing this, Luke thanks him profusely and promises to take good care of the place. With everything sorted, Samantha and Luke walk over to the dance floor and sway along to the wonderful music. Whilst dancing, Samantha looks at her parents and comes to the realization that the entire championship and invitation plan was hatched out to get the two of them back together. Despite this, she smiles and kisses Luke passionately. The two then dance the night away. Shortly after, Samantha returns back to New York with Luke. There, she finds out that her article has finally been selected as the cover for the latest edition of Compass magazine. Unable to contain her excitement, she shows her article to Chauncey, and even signs it for him. Luke arrives just then, and pulls her into the horse carriage. The movie finally ends with the two of them riding off whilst kissing each other and starting a new chapter of their lives together.